Octane was one of my most hyped up drops last year because I loved Don Toliver. I loved Hardstone Psycho. And I was so excited for Octane that I literally bought it on vinyl before I even heard what the album sounded like. I was so pumped for it. I still own it on vinyl and I don't regret that purchase whatsoever. And especially because I don't dislike this album. Please don't take it as like I'm about to be like, oh, but I'm disappointed. I am going to say though that this is the most basic Don Toliver album out of his last few. It definitely lacks the most aesthetic. Maybe I just don't rock with the aesthetic as much as I did for the last few albums, but this one just feels so much more bland, I guess is the right word. Especially coming off of what I thought were two really good singles. FWU, which isn't on this project, but it was produced by Mustard and is a banger. Tiramisu is on here, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking at the track list right now trying to find it. Here it is. That is another one that I like pretty good. I think this album starts off so strong with E85, Body, and Rendezvous. Yeet and Don Toliver make such good music. One of the my favorite songs, and you'll hear me talk more about ADL when it comes time for that review, is one of my favorite songs off that project was, I think it's Geet. It's just the song with Yeet or with Don Toliver on it. Super good. No, it's Griddle. That song is a banger. Another one I like on here is Long Way to Calabasas. Rosary's great. I like All the Signs. K9, Excavator, and Gemstone are bangers. However, this album does suffer from starting off a lot stronger because I like Secondhand a lot too. Starts off really strong, dies down, kicks back up, and then dies back down again. Because there's almost a really good streak here if Callback and Tuition weren't kind of not that good. The features do a lot of carrying on the songs that they're on. Travis Scott does a lot of the heavy lifting on Rosary. Tizo does a lot of heavy lifting. So does Saw Baby. That Saw Baby verse is great, by the way. But Don Toliver is doing a really good job on some of these songs, really stretching his vocals, really showing off what he can do with his voice, stuff like that. A lot of I think that is probably at his most, I guess you could say, experimental here, just kind of coming out of his comfort zone a little bit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think songs like Body, it does work. I think the ending of Excavator's another part where it kind of works, and on certain parts of Rendezvous or another part. Just really seeing what he can do with his voice, which I really like. And for the most part, of course, is something that I really like. Like I said, it loses steam in the second half of the album, being a lot less interesting, being a lot less provoking, but I do think a lot of that dies down to this kind of being like the most bare bones Don Toliver we've had. There's just so much less interesting going on here compared to his last few albums. I mean, even going back from A Life of a Don, I think he was just, it felt more aesthetic, felt more like reasoning, felt more like an actual album. I know a lot of people don't like Lovesick. I think that might be my favorite Don Toliver project, and I love the sound that he's going for on there. I love the rock elements on Hardstone Psycho. Octane doesn't really have anything unique per se about it. I mean, yeah, Don Toliver kind of switched up his aesthetic, and you can see that. But kind of all he did was dress in all white with his mask, and I mean, you can kind of tell that, yeah, that matches the sound, but I don't think that's in a good way. This album does suffer from certain songs not doing enough from Don. I'm trying to think of ATM as an example of that, and also just being too long and overstaying their welcome, trying to do too much, which is kind of odd because certain songs really find, runtime wise, really have it nailed. I think Body's one of those. This album is only 48 minutes and it's 18 songs, so lengthwise it's pretty good. But there's just, and also another problem with Don, he just doesn't say anything worthwhile. And what I mean by that is obviously I'm not going to Don Toliver for lyrics, but I know nothing about him. I literally know nothing about Don Toliver besides what I can look up and Google can give me that overview of. He's signed to Cactus Jack. I can figure out how old he is, stuff like that. And again, I don't need to know that much about him, but even with Travis, he trinkles in stuff about his personal life, stuff about him that make him seem more interesting as a rapper and make him seem a little more relatable. That's one of the reasons My Eyes is one of my favorite Travis Scott songs, because he talks about a little bit of what is going on. He doesn't overdo it, and he doesn't do it too much. That's what makes the moments that he does feel a little more special. That's one of the reasons a lot of people like 90210, and other Travis songs where he gets a little more personal and talks more about what is actually happening, even though he's not the most lyrically competent. And I don't need Don Toliver to be the most lyrically competent either, because obviously he's not. I don't expect him to be, but mention a little something. It does kind of have almost just bland, nothing music, which on one hand, for replayability purposes and for memorability I think I'm saying that right, memorability is not that good, because a lot of the songs on here I could probably find a better version of the song on another Don Toliver album that I probably still listen to. I like Rosary, but out of all the the collaborations with him and Travis, it is pretty marginally the worst one. The song with Saw Baby is pretty good, but out of all the Don Toliver collabs, there's probably better ones. I was talking about what's another example? Rendezvous. There are better Don Toliver and Yeat songs. E85. There are better intros. I think the intro on Hearthstone Psycho, Kryptonite, puts E85 to shame. And I don't. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that. But this really does feel like Don, kind of, when he's already a simplistic rapper. He's not that complicated, and that's part of what makes him so good. It feels like a lot of that has been stripped more. Again, though, that might be a lot of negative that I just said. There's still a lot to like here. There's still some positives. There are good flows. There are good lyrics. There are good sounds with his voice. There are good, I already said flows. There are good beats. The features are good. You know what I'm saying? The production most of the time is great. I'm not taking any of that stuff away, and there are some songs that I can go back and replay. And even then, my rating might not give you, it might not sound accurate to my review, but I promise it is. A lot of the songs on here I do replay quite a bit. As what I just said about E85, I do come back and listen to it. I come back and listen to Body. I come back and listen to Rosary and K9 and Excavator, Gemstone. I like Gemstone pretty good, to be honest. I love what he does with his voice on there. And if you notice, a lot of the songs I just listed are the less boring songs on here. And by less boring, I mean they're not boring at all. He's actually he's doing something with his voice, or he's trying something, or he's not overstaying his welcome on the song. Because I think sometimes Don Toliver has had that problem. He has that problem on almost every single song, where a bunch of these could have been about 20 seconds shorter and probably been a lot better. You know what I mean? It's just, and again, that's not even the craziest of a problem. That's more of a nitpick than anything. But whenever you're listening to an album from start to finish and one of the songs feels like they just refuse to end more than once, it becomes more of a problem. I try not to compare Don albums too awful much, because a lot of them sound different from each other and are harder to compare, because you can tell they're made with different creative directions in mind. But this one's its creative direction does feel the most foggy out of all of his projects, as in I don't know entirely what it's supposed to be. And second of all, the kind of idea of this type of psychedelic / just trippy, I guess, type of music, I guess for lack of better wording, it is kind of at its least effective on this project, if that makes sense. There's it almost feels like it's fallen the most flat on here, as in it just feels less creatively driven. Almost there's a lack of really trying to do anything really interesting here, if that makes sense, which none of that makes it bad per se, but it just makes it a lot less interesting of something to listen to. This is also kind of an issue that I had a lot more rarely on Hardstone Psycho, but you'll notice that the Don Toliver songs that I always go towards and the ones that I always like pretty good are always the ones that actually like he's doing something vocally interesting. And sometimes a lot of the ones that I really dislike are the ones that I think go on too long because he's doing the hook one or two more times, are the ones that he kind of meanders through almost. His tone sounds the same. He doesn't really try to do anything different with his singing. He kind of just meanders, like sleepily goes through it. And I do think that that is a problem. You know what I'm saying? So like the kind of illusion to that type of almost intoxicating sound that he can do with his voice kind of falls flat because again, I feel like I've said it a lot. It's just almost a lack of direction. Like a lot of these songs kind of like, even though I like a good amount of them, feel like they are throwaways off of his past projects. Like Excavator or like Body, if you told me that they were throwaways off of Hardstone Psycho, I would believe you. Rosary sounds like a cutoff from either Lovesick or Life of a Dawn. Body, I already said Body. I'm sorry. Rendezvous also sounds like a throwaway from Hardstone Psycho. A lot of these do, actually. Fun fact. Tiramisu sounds like it was a throwaway off Lovesick. You know what I mean? Same with Long Way to Calabasas. And maybe not necessarily in the production sound or like even whole lyrical content, but almost like I have an idea for like the initial drafts of those albums might have had those songs. Like the initial idea creation was like, oh, let's make this song. Oh, I got this. Oh, I could, this ain't entirely what the album is, but I'm gonna hold on to this song. And then boom, he dropped it on Octane. So I usually, like, after I record what I do and I'm ready to give my rating, I'll go on and I'll kind of look at other people's opinions to see how much I vary from other ones. I had no idea that this album was as, like, mixed. I mean, I knew it was a little bit, but, like, there is no in between. Either people hate it or people love it. There is no one seems to say it's decent. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to fall in, saying that this album is like a smack dab, like I'm going to give it a 6. No, yeah, I'm going to say 6, which is a little bit lower than what my initial notes had. I think when I had these notes, I think at that moment, I liked the project, or I thought I liked it a little more than I did, which, going back and looking at it and re-listening to some of the songs and some of the other, like, parts of the album, I definitely don't like it as much as I thought I did. I still don't regret having it on vinyl or anything like that. I don't regret any of my vinyls. I bought it. It'll probably get spun every once in a while, just get spun less than the other ones. I had no idea that people, like, and no one thinks this album's, like, decent. Either they think it's really good, one of his best, or they think it's, like, his worst album by a long shot. I don't think it's either. I think it's decent. I do think a solid 6 out of 10 is very fair, which maybe that's just being a little Don Toliver biased. I feel like I've been mostly negative, but that is because like of what he has shown. Don has set a very good standard for his creative direction, for what he can do with his voice, for what he can try and convey, and it just kind of none of that is here. We still get good songs, but they're a lot less entertaining and a lot more simplistic, which on one hand helps him out, but it hurts more than it helps in my personal opinion. So I'm going to give Octane a 6 out of 10. If you enjoyed the video, then I want you to subscribe. I want you to join the Discord and get pings and get in there and chat with other people about music, drop hot takes, do all that. Got a bustling community down there waiting on you. Hit the like button, comment, hit the bell. I've been daily uploading. I love you guys.